Picture this. You're standing inside a dimly lit Roman villa, somewhere on the Palatine Hill, where marble floors glisten beneath the flicker of oil lamps. The scent of myrrh clings to the air, thick and intoxicating. A soft breeze slips through silk curtains, but it carries something darker, whispers, gasps, and a rhythm that feels almost ritualistic. Then you see it, a circle of Rome's most powerful elite senators, priestesses, aristocratic wives gathered beneath a mosaic of Dionysus, preparing to perform a forbidden sexual ceremony that only the wealthiest dared enact. These rituals weren't about pleasure alone. They were about power, dominance, and control. In Rome, intimacy itself became a political weapon, and in these shadowed chambers, reputations were made, alliances sealed, and empires broken. Tonight, you'll walk into a world hidden from history books, a world where desire was currency and rituals were deadlier than knives. Before we enter these chambers fully, take a moment. Where are you listening from right now? Is it morning, night, or somewhere in between? Let the room around you fade, the lights soften, and your breathing slow as we slip deeper into Rome's darkest secrets. And if you're new here, welcome to Whispers of History. Make yourself comfortable, settle into the shadows of the ancient world, and subscribe so you never miss the stories that were buried for centuries. Because tonight, we re-uncovering what Rome never wanted you to know, rituals so forbidden that even emperors feared their power. Imagine walking deeper into the villa, past pillars carved with scenes of drunken gods and ecstatic followers. These weren't mere decorations, they were instructions. Rome's elites believed that intimacy connected humans to divine forces, but only when performed in specific ways, and the most powerful families like the Claudi, the Corneli, the Fabi had their own secret rites. One ritual, whispered among historians, involved a blindfolded initiate being led into a chamber where three veiled figures awaited. The initiate wasn't told their identity. They could be slaves, they could be noblewomen, they could be men. The uncertainty wasn't the point, the surrender was. For the Romans, losing control symbolized rebirth, a shedding of the old self before stepping into greater power. But what happened in these chambers didn't always end in ecstasy. Sometimes it ended in ruin. You step closer, the walls echo with murmurs about a woman named Clodia, notorious aristocrat whose beauty was matched only by her scandal. She was rumored to host rituals known as convivia, nocturnal midnight feasts where wine flowed like rivers, musicians played hypnotic melodies, and strangers met behind masks. But these weren't orgies, as later gossip claimed. They were ceremonies, structured, intentional, almost religious. Participants believed the exchange of pleasure could bind souls, create unbreakable alliances, or even curse rivals. Some rituals required fasting beforehand, others required bathing in rosewater or olive oil, and some demanded the sacrifice of innocence, not by force, but by ritualistic manipulation. In these dim chambers, Rome's elite blurred the line between the sacred and the profane, always seeking the favor of gods who demanded passion as tribute. But let me tell you a truth most historians avoid. Rome's sexual rituals weren't equal. Women, especially noblewomen, paid the highest price. You hear or whisper stories of young aristocratic brides forced to participate in the lectus acer, the sacred bed. On their wedding night, before touching their husbands, they were made to lie on a ceremonial couch dedicated to the fertility goddess Bonadi. A robed priestess would watch as the bride performed intimate acts meant to awaken her womanhood. These rituals were humiliating, invasive, and rarely optional. And for women like Cornelia, Minor, a noble's daughter, refusal meant exile or, worse, rumors that could end a life faster than poison. In Rome, a woman's reputation was more fragile than glass. Once broken, it never mended. You move past another doorway, this time into a colder chamber. Here, the rituals weren't sensual, they were brutal. The flagellum ritualis, a whipping ceremony for purification, required participants, usually young women, to be gently beaten with leather thongs dipped in milk and honey. They believed it brought fertility, strengthened the womb, and aligned the body with Venus's blessings. But in elite circles, this ritual took darker turns. Some husbands used it as an excuse for cruelty, masking violence as purification. A senator named Lucius Piso was infamous for performing it with such severity that 2 of his slave attendants died. Yet he faced no consequences. Rome wasn't built on justice, it was built on power, and these rituals exposed exactly who held it. Suddenly, a chilling silence fills the villa. A servant extinguishes one of the lamps, signaling the beginning of Rome's most dangerous ritual, the sub rosa ceremony, under the rose, a vow that whatever happened next would never leave the walls. This ritual wasn't held often. It demanded secrecy, loyalty, and absolute submission. Participants removed their jewelry, their tunics, even their names. Under the rose, identities dissolved. The elite performed acts that would bring execution if revealed. And yet, these rituals shaped political alliances, determined marriages, and secured inheritances. Some emperors rose to power through alliances forged in these rooms. Others fell because something whispered under the rose slipped into public ears. As you stand outside the chamber now, listening to the muffled breaths inside, you realize, in Rome, pleasure wasn't an escape, it was a battlefield, but we're only at the threshold. What waits inside the sub-rosa chamber is darker and far more dangerous than anything we've seen so far. You step into the chamber slowly, letting the darkness settle around you like a velvet cloak. The air feels thicker here, charged with something ancient and electric. The only light comes from a single bronze lamp, swinging gently from a chain casting molten gold across the polished marble floor. A circle of figures stands before you, draped in translucent linen, their faces masked with carved wooden visors, shaped like gods, Venus. These masks were not decorative. They allowed the elite to transcend their identities and become vessels for the gods' desires. You hear soft chanting in Greek words, calling upon divine ecstasy. The ritual is about to begin. Rome's elite didn't gather here for pleasure alone. They believed these ceremonies granted visions, blessings, even the power to manipulate fate itself. And what unfolded beneath these masks would ripple far beyond this chamber. A soft voice breaks the tension. It belongs to an older man, perhaps a priest, perhaps a senator reciting the invocation. He chants the first rule of the ritual. Nothing done here belongs to mortals. This was how Rome's aristocrats freed themselves from guilt, shame, or consequence. If the gods wanted the ritual, then what happened here was divine will. A woman steps forward, her mask shaped like Venus. She pours wine on the floor, letting it spread in a dark, shimmering pool. This offering symbolized release of inhibitions, of secrets, of the constraints society forced upon them. Then the participants join hands, creating a circle, the ritual of union. This circle was believed to bind everyone together spiritually, meaning whatever bond formed here would follow them outside these walls. Senators who hated each other publicly might share the same ritual. Women who were rivals might be forced to stand hand in hand. And once the circle closed, there was no escape. Imagine what it felt like for a young noblewoman, barely 14, newly married, terrified to enter such a ritual. Her husband would stand beside her wearing a grotesque Priapus mask, symbolizing dominance and fertility. She had no choice. This was her initiation into Rome's elite society, a test of obedience and loyalty. If she hesitated, her reputation would shatter instantly. But even obedience did not protect her. Some men tested their wives' reactions, pushing boundaries to see if they flinched, cried, or showed disobedience. A single misstep could result in rumors that could ruin a woman's entire family. You begin to understand the cruelty hidden beneath the glamour. These rituals weren't empowering, they were weapons. Tools of control disguised as sacred ceremonies. Rome wrapped its brutality in incense and hymns, making women believe submission was divine. A chilling breeze moves through the chamber as a new figure arrives, a man in a wolf mask. The moment he enters, the others step back. This is the Lupercus, the symbolic embodiment of the Lupercalia festival's spirit. In Rome, the wolf represented virility, chaos, and primal desire. His role in the ritual was unpredictable. Some nights, he blessed couples with a touch on the shoulder. Other nights, he demanded a woman be presented for symbolic uniana, reenactment of ancient fertility rites meant to bring abundance. Tonight, he approaches a masked young woman trembling at the edge of the circle. Her hands shake as he lifts her chin. Her breath catches, but she cannot protest. If she did, The shame wouldn't be hers. Alone it would stain her entire bloodline. For Rome cared more about appearances than innocence. More about ritual than mercy. But here's the darkest truth. Not all who entered these chambers did so willingly. Some were slaves chosen for their beauty. Some were captured foreigners offered as exotic sacrifices. And some were young boys forced to play roles they did not understand. Rome praised control, but behind closed doors, it exercised cruelty without hesitation. In one famous case, recorded by Seneca, a nobleman named Gaius Hostilius used the rituals to humiliate his enemies. He would force political rivals to attend, then engineer situations revealing their weaknesses: fear, jealousy, desire. After the ritual, he'd use what he observed to blackmail them. It worked so effectively that he rose rapidly in the Senate. But his downfall came when he pushed too far, involving the wife of a powerful general. She died mysteriously weeks later. Rome whispered, but no one dared speak her name aloud. The chanting grows louder now. The circle breaks apart as participants choose partners or are chosen. The rituals diverge, depending on the night's theme. Some follow Dionysian patterns: wild, frenzied, ecstatic. Others embrace Venusian, right, soft, seductive, ritualistic. Tonight's ritual appears to be a mixture. A woman draped in gold silk steps onto a raised platform. She removes her mask slowly, revealing her identity. She is a highborn matron, known for her influence. Her presence changes everything. When elite women, especially powerful matrons, joined these rituals, it wasn't only for pleasure, it was for influence. By participating, she bound herself to the group, making them indebted to her secrecy. And by offering herself publicly, she demonstrated dominance disguised as devotion. This was Rome's game. Pleasure as performance, desire as diplomacy. But the most dangerous part of the ritual is yet to come: the oath of silence. A servant enters, carrying a small bronze bowl filled with crushed rose petals, mixed with wine. Each participant sips it, symbolizing the vow: if anyone betrayed what they witnessed, they risked divine punishment and social execution. Rome didn't need courts to destroy someone. Rumors could erase a life faster than any blade. A single whisper that someone broke the sub rosa vow meant exile, disgrace, or forced suicide. This oath was the glue that held Rome's darkest secrets together. And because of this vow, many tragedies were buried forever. As the ritual intensifies, the chamber grows hotter, the air thicker. Bodies move like shadows. The woman in gold descends from the platform and approaches someone at the edge of the room, a man whose identity remains hidden under the harsh mask of the god Pan. Their connection seems significant, forbidden, but before you can understand what's unfolding between them, a new figure enters, shaking the foundations of the ritual. A figure who was never meant to be here. The chamber freezes. Even the flickering lamplight seems to tremble as the intruder steps inside. His silhouette is tall, wrapped in a dark toga that absorbs the glow around him. But it's the mask he wears that sends a ripple of fear through the ritual. Unlike the carved visors of gods, his mask is blank, smooth, featureless, colorless. A symbol forbidden even among Rome's elite. A symbol of judgment. You hear a whisper ripple across the room. Custos, the keeper. He wasn't part of the ritual, he was above it. In certain elite circles, the custos was appointed by the host to oversee the ritual, ensure silence, enforce the vow, and make sure no alliances formed that could threaten the household's power. But this custos wasn't summoned. His arrival meant someone had broken protocol, and in Rome's forbidden rituals, that could mean death. The masked matron in gold stiffens. You watch her gaze dart to the man wearing Pan's mask, the man she had approached moments before. Something is wrong, very wrong. Pan mask shifts backward, careful, trying not to draw attention. But the custos moves with precision, raising one hand before the ritual guardian can escape. A single gesture, commanding stillness. Then silence thickens as he steps into the center of the chamber. His voice is low, controlled, dripping with authority. One among you stands where they should not. A wave of unease rolls through the circle. Rome's secrets were deadly, and being accused inside a ritual chamber was worse than being exposed in the Senate. Here, judgment wasn't legal, it was ritualistic. That meant the punishment could be anything. A fine, a beating, exile, or a sacrifice. Elite families often used ritual betrayal as an excuse to eliminate rivals. And tonight, the air feels ripe for blood. The custos walk slowly, deliberately, past senators, priestesses, scribes, noble women, all trembling beneath their masks. He stops in front of a young woman. A girl, really no older than 16. You watch her flinch. Her linen garment clings to her skin from fierce sweat. She wasn't meant to be here. Her mask, shaped like a sparrow, marks her as a novice, an initiate, observing her first ceremony. Initiates were forbidden from participating. They were meant to watch silently, learn, remain untouched. But the custos believes she has broken this rule. He raises her chin, his voice like cold iron. You crossed the threshold of the sacred. She tries to speak, but fear steals her words. The room waits. The silence feels suffocating as the custos commands her to remove her mask. When she does, the chamber gasps. Not because she is a novice, but because she is someone far more important and far more dangerous. She is Livia Sabina, daughter of Senator Marcus Sabinus, one of the most powerful men in Rome. Her presence here is a scandal that could ignite a political firestorm. Elite daughters were rarely allowed into such rites unless their marriage was being arranged or their fathers sought alliances. But Sabina's father was known for opposing these rituals, calling them corrupt, dangerous, unroman. If word reached him that his daughter was here, the consequences would shake the foundations of the elite. The custos knows this. His eyes, though hidden, seem to pierce her soul. You were not chosen, he hisses. Who brought you in? The room tenses. Because no one enters these rituals alone. Someone smuggled her in. Someone powerful. Someone with a reason. And if the custos uncovers that name, alliances could crumble. Reputations could rot. And blood could spill before dawn. Sabina trembles, her body folding inward as if trying to disappear. She whispers a name but too softly for you to hear. The custos leans closer. Speak. When she finally does, the chamber reacts like a struck beast. Gasps. A choked cry. Someone stumbles backward. The name she utters belongs to the man wearing Pan's mask. The same man the golden matron had approached moments earlier. He steps back, shaking his head, hands trembling, trying to deny it. But the custos doesn't wait for a confession. He reaches forward and tears the mask from the man's face. And there he stands, exposed to all the wealthy and influential Lucius alias Varro. A man famous for hosting private salons, charming senators, seducing noble women, and manipulating the political tides through pleasure and knowledge. His downfall in this chamber would not just destroy him, it would destroy everyone connected to him. The custos's voice sharpens. Why bring an uninitiated daughter of a senator into a forbidden rite? Varro tries to speak, but fear cracks his voice. The golden matron steps forward, her mask still on, trying to intervene. But the custos raises a hand to silence her. Power shifts violently in the room. Rituals of desire have become rituals of judgment. Varro finally manages words. I sought protection. His voice trembles. Sabinus intends to destroy me. He accuses me of corrupting the youth, of seducing married women. He seeks my life. The custos scoffs. So you brought his daughter here, into a place where she could be ruined. Varro shakes his head violently. No, she came willingly. She sought refuge. She feared her father's plans. The room murmurs. A noble daughter seeking refuge in a ritual chamber. Impossible, or was it? Sabina collapses to her knees, sobbing. Her voice spills out, trembling and broken. My father plans to force me into marriage with a man thrice my age. I begged Varro for help. I thought, if I entered the rite, I could swear myself under the rose. It would protect me. Now the room understands. She wasn't seeking pleasure. She was seeking asylum. But in Rome, even desperation had a price. The custos's voice drops to a whisper colder than marble. By entering this chamber without sanction, you have stained the rite. The punishment for unsanctioned presence varied from family to family, but most followed ancient law, purification, not symbolic, physical. A shudder passes through the room. Everyone knows what purification means, and Sabina's face drains of color. But before the custos can issue the decree, the golden matron, her authority unmistakable, steps forward, removing her mask at last. The chamber gasps again, for she is not just a participant. She is Domitia Longino, wife of a powerful statesman, ally to the emperor, and one of the most feared women in the aristocracy. Her presence changes everything. She looks at the custos and says, "The girl is under my protection," and the entire chamber holds its breath. The room is suspended in a breathless stillness. Even the flickering lamp seems to pause, as if awaiting Domitia Longino's command. Her voice is low, but carries a weight that silences every whisper. No harm shall come to her, she asserts, her tone not a plea but a decree. In Rome, words from someone of her rank were law enough to bend even ritual custom. The custos steps back slightly, the mask of judgment still fixed upon him, yet a subtle acknowledgement passes between them. He knows that to oppose her now would invite disaster, just for the girl, but for the entire chamber. Varro, exposed and trembling, realizes that he has survived the first wave of peril. But survival does not mean safety. Domitia's eyes scan the participants, sharp and calculating, measuring loyalty, fear, and ambition in equal measure. The ritual, once solely about desire, has become a battlefield of power. Sabina clings to the golden matron's robe, her hands shaking violently. The scent of crushed rose petals and spilt wine clings to the air, thick with tension. She had thought herself safe, protected in the sanctity of the sub-rosa vow, but nothing in Rome guarantees safety, least of all in these chambers. The novices had been warned. Curiosity could be fatal. Yet here she is, trembling before Domitia Longina, her secret exposed to a chamber of the elite. She watches the reactions of other participants, some shocked, some calculating, some with barely concealed satisfaction. Every glance is a potential threat. Every whisper could reach the Senate or a noble household before dawn. Sabina understands, in a way she never could before, that power in Rome was always wielded behind veils, whether literal or figurative. Domitia steps toward the center of the chamber, her movements deliberate, her silk swishing like water over marble. She lifts her hand, and the custos nods slightly, acknowledging her authority. Then she turns to Sabina, placing a gloved hand gently on her shoulder. "You sought refuge," she says softly, yet every word echoes with command. "Then you will learn, not as a pawn, but as a participant under my guidance." Sabina swallows, her throat tight, as Domitia gestures to the surrounding circle. "Observe, learn, understand the power you now step into. Tonight is not merely about pleasure. Tonight is about knowledge, alliances, and survival." The golden matron's words are a lifeline, a shield, but also a lesson. In Rome, understanding the rules was as vital as obeying them. One misstep, one misjudged look, and even an elite matron could fall. Varro, still barefaced, remains at the edge of the chamber, watching. Relief mixes uneasily with fear in his eyes. He had brought Sabina here to protect her from the political machinery of her father, yet the chamber's power is indifferent. The sub-rosa vow is not suspended by fear or rank. Yet Domitia's presence reshapes the hierarchy. Varro realizes that alliances are fluid. Yesterday's protector may be tomorrow's betrayer. The golden matron surveys the group, identifying subtle hierarchies, who bows to whom, who hesitates, who calculates, who envies. Every movement is an assertion of dominance. Even the custos, though a symbol of ritual law, cannot ignore the political currents Domitia generates simply by standing. Sabina's safety is guaranteed, for now but Rome never leaves its debts unpaid. Someone, somewhere, will claim the cost. The room exhales slowly as Domitia gestures toward the center of the chamber. A new phase of the ritual begins. The participants pair off not by desire alone, but by political necessity. Senators join priestesses, matrons join novices. The sub-rosa ceremony dictates that alliances formed here are binding, spiritual and social, and no one may refuse. Sabina watches, entranced and terrified, as the ritual unfolds around her. Some acts are sensual, flowing with grace and devotion to Venus. Others are commanding, chaotic, invoking Bacchus' frenzy. Yet all are deliberate, precise. Rome's elite understood that pleasure was never accidental. It was a tool, a weapon, a language of power. Sabina begins to perceive patterns, rules hidden in every gesture, every glance. The lessons are subtle, dangerous, and essential. A sudden movement draws her eyes. The Lupercus, still masked as the wolf, prowls near the edge of the circle. Unlike earlier, tonight he is not invoking fertility. Tonight he watches. His presence is a reminder. Chaos is always a possibility, even under Domitia's order. Participants stiffen, aware that ritual and violence are inseparable in these chambers. Sabina notes the older man, the priest-senator, reciting Greek invocations whose chants have shifted to softer tones. He observes, but does not intervene except when needed. Ritual hierarchy mirrors political hierarchy, authority layered, invisible, and merciless. Sabina realizes that to survive, she must see beyond fear and pleasure. She must read the intentions beneath every mask, for, in Rome, perception often outweighed reality. Domitia steps beside her, and Sabina follows, hesitant yet compelled. They move closer to the golden platform, where the matron had first revealed herself. Here, the energy of the chamber concentrates, swirling like incense smoke. Domitia lowers her voice, speaking directly to Sabina. "You are no longer merely a girl seeking protection," she whispers. "You are a witness, a participant. Remember everything. Power is woven into desire, alliances into submission, and knowledge into observation. One day, you will stand where I do now. Tonight is your lesson." Sabina swallows, the weight of those words pressing down like a marble slab. She feels the air thicken around her, the whispers of past rituals, past transgressions, past sacrifices brushing against her skin. Every sensation is heightened. Every smell, every sound, every glance carries meaning. She is learning the language of Rome's forbidden elite. Time becomes elastic. Moments stretch, compress, dissolve. Sabina watches as the ritual reaches its climax. Hands entwine, lips brush, gestures of power mingle with acts of devotion. Domitia observes, unflinching, a sentinel in silk and gold. The custos remains still, a shadow of law and judgment, yet even he pauses, acknowledging the shift in hierarchy. The chamber, once dominated by anonymous masks and ritual fervor, now pulses with political gravity. Every movement is a statement, every act a negotiation. Sabina feels the enormity of what she has witnessed. Pleasure is inseparable from danger, desire inseparable from consequence. She understands, in the marrow of her bones, that survival in Rome's elite society demands more than obedience. It demands vision, cunning, and courage. Finally, as the ritual winds down, Domitia gestures to the participants to step back. Silence returns, thick and palpable. The air still hums with residual energy, the scent of wine, roses, and fear lingering like an invisible tapestry. The custos nods subtly, acknowledging the matron's authority. Sabina, trembling, realizes she has endured her first sub-rosa ritual, yet her lesson has only begun. Rome's secrets are vast, and the chamber has revealed merely a fragment. She has seen power intertwined with pleasure, cruelty with devotion, secrecy with survival, and she has seen, above all, that even the most forbidden rituals are governed by unyielding rules she must learn to navigate, if she wishes to survive the treacherous currents of Rome's elite world. As the participants begin to leave, removing their masks and settling into a cautious calm, Sabina lingers, her mind spinning with revelations. Domitia's hand rests lightly on her shoulder, a reassurance and a challenge. The night has been a baptism in secrecy, an initiation into a world where pleasure is strategy, where alliances are forged in shadows, and where even innocence may be weaponized. Sabina knows that what she has witnessed cannot leave this villa, cannot be repeated outside these walls, and cannot be forgotten. For in Rome, the line between survival and ruin is drawn in desire, sealed by ritual and enforced by those who understand its deadly power. The villa is quiet now, but the echoes of the ritual linger like smoke clinging to the walls. Sabina sits on a cold marble bench, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The golden matron, Domitia Longina, remains nearby, her gaze sweeping the chamber with the precision of a predator. "You have survived the first trial," she says softly, her voice carrying both pride and warning. "But survival is only the beginning. In Rome, knowledge is power, and power can be as lethal as any sword." Sabina swallows, her throat dry. She had entered these chambers seeking protection, but what she has found is far more complex. This is not simply a place of ritual or pleasure, it's a crucible where secrets, ambition, and desire are forged into tools of influence. Every whisper, every glance, every act observed tonight will echo beyond these walls, shaping destinies in ways she cannot yet comprehend. Demetia gestures to Vero, who still trembles near the edge of the room. "And you," she says, voice sharp as a blade, "your recklessness nearly cost this girl her life. Your alliances, your schemes, your ambitions, they are dangerous." Vero bows his head, realizing that his charm and cunning, which had carried him through countless salons and dinners, are meaningless here. In this chamber, survival is dictated not by rhetoric or wit, but by an understanding of the ritual, the hierarchy, and the silent rules that govern power. Sabina watches him, fascinated despite her fear. Even a man like Varro, versed in manipulation and seduction, is vulnerable here. The Sub Rosa ceremony has a logic all its own, one that spares neither novice nor veteran, neither priestess nor senator. The custos remains, a shadow of authority, unmoving yet impossible to ignore. Sabina feels the weight of his gaze, even though she cannot see his eyes behind the blank mask. He is a reminder that Rome's hidden power is eternal, impartial, and often cruel. No act within these walls escapes consequence. Even a mistake made out of fear or desperation can ripple outward, destroying families, fortunes, and reputations. She senses that every participant carries this knowledge, encoded into posture, gesture, and expression. To navigate this world, she must learn to read these signs, to interpret intentions hidden beneath layers of masks and ritual. Tonight has been her initiation, but the real lessons are yet to come. Varro moves toward Sabina cautiously, voice low and urgent. "You must understand, girl," he whispers. "You are not safe merely because Domitia protects you. In Rome, alliances are temporary. Every favor can be recalled. Every secret can be turned into a weapon." Sabina nods, absorbing his words despite her trembling. Her mind reels with images of the night, masked figures, whispered oaths, the Lupercus prowling at the edge of chaos, the Golden Matron asserting dominance with unshakable authority. Each memory is a thread in a vast tapestry of intrigue and danger. She realizes that knowledge of these rituals is itself a form of currency, one that can grant survival, influence, or death. To leave this chamber unarmed in understanding is to invite ruin. The Golden Matron steps closer to Sabina, lowering her voice further. "Tonight, you witnessed the boundaries of power and submission," she says. "You saw how desire can be a weapon, and how obedience can be coerced into loyalty. But remember, this power is never static. It shifts like wine in a cup. Those who seem untouchable can fall in a heartbeat. Observe carefully, learn swiftly, and never forget the weight of silence." Sabina nods, her fingers tightening around the folds of her linen garment. She feels a strange mixture of fear, fascination, and resolve. This world, forbidden and dangerous, is now hers to navigate. The veil has been lifted, and she must step carefully through the shadows that remain. A sudden knock echoes from the outer chamber, startling everyone. The custos stiffens, hand rising instinctively. Demetia's eyes flash with recognition. "It is unexpected," she murmurs, her voice taut. A servant enters, pale and trembling, carrying a small scroll sealed with a family insignia. Domitia takes it carefully, breaking the wax and unrolling the parchment. Her face, for the first time tonight, betrays a flicker of emotion, concern, calculation, perhaps even fear. The contents of the scroll are whispered to her, alone, yet Sabina senses its gravity. In Rome, messages carried by wax and ink are never trivial. Each seal, each script, each symbol can dictate alliances, provoke war, or justify assassination. The Golden Matron folds the parchment, her hands steady despite the tension. "It appears the political storm approaches faster than anticipated," she says, her voice low but sharp. "And it seeks to touch even this chamber." Sabina feels a cold shiver run through her spine. She realizes that the night's rituals are not isolated performances. They are connected to the larger machinery of Rome itself. Senators will act, rivals will scheme, and families will maneuver to claim advantage. The Sub Rosa ceremony is both a mirror and a catalyst for the power struggles outside these walls. Every act of secrecy, every vow, every bond formed here will influence events in the Senate, in the forums, in the streets where the populace remains oblivious. Knowledge of the ritual grants insight, yes, but also responsibility. One misstep could cascade into scandal, exile, or death. Sabina understands, with a clarity born of fear, that her initiation has only just begun. The golden matron turns back to the circle, her gaze sweeping the participants with precision. "You will leave this chamber now," she commands. "But remember, nothing ends at its threshold. Tonight's lessons travel with you. Every whispered word, every glance, every encounter outside these walls must honor the sanctity of what was observed here." Participants begin to move cautiously, removing masks and returning to the shadowed corridors of the villa. Sabina follows, guided by Demetia, her mind a swirl of impressions. She remembers the faces, the gestures, the hierarchies, and the unspoken rules. The knowledge she carries is dangerous, intoxicating, and profound. It will shape her understanding of power, influence, and survival for years to come. As they exit into the cooler night air, Sabina inhales deeply, the scent of myrrh, rose petals, and oil lingering. She looks back at the villa, its walls now silent, its chambers empty of ritual but not of memory. The city beyond sleeps, unaware of the clandestine ceremonies shaping destinies within its heart. Domitia's hand rests briefly on her shoulder, a silent reminder that protection is temporary and vigilance eternal. Sabina knows that tomorrow, the lessons of the night will ripple outward, touching the lives of senators, matrons, and novices alike. Rome's elite may mask their intentions, disguise their desires, and conceal their power. But the patterns are visible to those who watch carefully, and Sabina intends to watch. The shadows deepen around them as they walk into the night, each step a test of poise, discretion, and comprehension. Sabina feels the weight of what she has learned pressing down upon her, the responsibility of knowledge shaping her every thought. Rome's forbidden rituals were more than acts, they were lessons in survival, in strategy, in understanding the lethal interplay of desire and authority. As the villa recedes behind them, Sabina realizes that her journey has only begun. The city, the Senate, and the elite families all await her comprehension, her maneuvering, and her silence. And she is ready, for the first time, to embrace the deadly elegance of Rome's hidden world. Dawn creeps over Palatine Hill, painting Rome in muted gold and crimson. The villa's shadowed chambers, once alive with whispers and ritual, now sit silent, holding the memory of the night like a tightly coiled spring. Sabina walks beside Domitia Longina, her steps careful, her eyes scanning the streets below. The city awakens, unaware of the secrets that pulse within its heart. Yet Rome is never silent for long. News travels on subtle currents through servants, slaves, and trusted allies faster than any decree. Every whisper carries weight, and tonight, the Sub Rosa ritual has set forces in motion beyond the villa. Sabina understands the gravity of what transpired. Alliances have shifted, debts have been created, and those who once wielded unquestioned influence may now find themselves exposed to danger. In Rome, knowledge alone can tip the balance between power and ruin. Varro follows at a distance, his face pale but resolute. He had survived the Custos judgment and Domitia's scrutiny, but he knows the city will not forget. Every participant of the night's ceremony is now a potential tool, weapon, or liability. Sabina observes him carefully, even exposed and trembling. Varro's mind is calculating, measuring opportunity and threat. She realizes that he represents the duality of Rome's elite, charming yet dangerous, protective yet self-serving. The lessons of the villa extend outward into the city, and every choice, every glance, every action can create ripples felt in the Senate, in noble households, and even in the shadowed corners where assassins lurk. Sabina begins to understand that survival in this world requires more than obedience. It demands comprehension of both human desire and political ambition. Domitia guides Sabina to a secluded terrace overlooking the forum. From this vantage point, the city stretches before them, a maze of marble, stone, and whispered intrigues. "You have witnessed a ritual," Domitia says, her voice low, carrying authority and caution. But the ritual is only one thread in a tapestry far larger. Rome's power is woven through alliances, secrets, and manipulation. Those who appear untouchable may fall with a single rumor. Tonight, You observed the interplay of desire and influence. Tomorrow, the consequences will emerge. Sabina nods, absorbing the enormity of her matron's words. She senses the subtle danger that surrounds them, the invisible hands shaping outcomes that none of the participants fully control. In Rome, even power wielded in a villa can ripple outward with deadly force. The day passes with measured caution. Sabina returns to her quarters, yet sleep evades her. Every detail of the night replays in her mind. The masks, the chants, the subtle hierarchies, the custo's shadowed presence. Her thoughts drift to Varro, to Domitia, and to the golden matron whose authority had protected her. She wonders how alliances will shift once the city learns of her unsanctioned presence in the ritual. Even under Domitia's protection, there are those who would exploit the scandal, who would twist her involvement to serve ambition or vengeance. In Rome, innocence is no shield. Awareness, discretion, and timing are the only safeguards. Sabina begins to see herself not as a victim, but as a participant in a larger, deadly game. By afternoon, rumors have begun to circulate in hushed tones. Sabina learns through subtle inquiries and discreet whispers that her father, Senator Marcus Sabinus, has heard faint hints of her absence the previous night. His allies murmur of impropriety, of ritual violation, of potential scandal. The Golden Matron, aware of the political consequences, sends subtle messages through loyal intermediaries, ensuring that no overt accusation reaches Sabina before she is ready. In these moments, Sabina comprehends the extent of Domitia's power. She commands influence not through force, but through perception, reputation, and control over information. Rome's elite operate in shadows. Domitia has mastered them. Sabina begins to internalize that protection in this city requires both cunning and vigilance, as visible authority often conceals the deadliest currents. Evening approaches, and Sabina is summoned back to the villa. The Sub Rosa ritual has left a residue both literal and symbolic in the minds of its participants. Domitia awaits her, the same composed, commanding presence as before. She does not speak immediately, allowing Sabina a moment to steel herself. Then she gestures toward a small inner chamber, one untouched by the night's ceremonies. "You must learn the consequences of action," she says, her voice firm. "Tonight, you will observe the political aftermath. Understand how alliances shift, how whispers become weapons, and how fear and desire intertwine. Knowledge without experience is dangerous. Tonight, you will see the consequences firsthand." Sabina feels her pulse quicken. The lessons of ritual are complete, but the lessons of power are only beginning. The chamber fills with individuals summoned by Domitia politicians, matrons, and loyal allies of her household. Each carries subtle tension in posture and expression. Sabina notices the undercurrents immediately. Whispers exchanged, eyes darting, subtle signs of suspicion. The aftermath of the Sub Rosa ritual manifests in social dynamics as clearly as any act within the villa. A noblewoman, previously distant from Domitia's circle, now approaches, her gestures calculated to curry favor. A senator, previously allied with Varro, shows unease, sensing the shift in power. Sabina observes, noting each subtle move, each strategic glance. The city beyond the villa may seem unaware, but the mechanisms of influence are already in motion. Tonight's ritual was merely the spark. The fire spreads through allegiances and ambition. Domitia moves among them, commanding respect through presence alone. Sabina follows, learning as she observes. Alliances are reaffirmed, debts are noted, and subtle threats are implied without a word being spoken aloud. She realizes that this is the second layer of the ritual, the social consequence. Acts within the villa carry a weight that cannot be measured by pleasure or fear alone. They carry political currency. Each participant now navigates not just secrecy, but ambition. The lines between personal desire and strategic maneuver blur. Sabina watches carefully, her mind absorbing, cataloging, and analyzing. The city, the Senate, and the villa itself form a single ecosystem where influence, secrecy, and power converge. As night descends, Domitia finally addresses Sabina directly. "You have seen desire as ritual," she says. "You have seen power as control, but Rome is a living organism. Your role is not to flee nor to hide, but to observe, understand, and act." Every decision carries weight. Every secret may become leverage. Remember, the Custos watches, the city whispers, and those who ignore the rules will fall. Sabina nods, understanding that her education has shifted from ritual to realpolitik. Rome's elite are both students and teachers, manipulating and being manipulated. Tonight, she has witnessed the interplay of influence, strategy, and desire. Tomorrow, she must begin to wield that knowledge herself, for survival is never passive, and power is never granted, it is seized, maintained, and defended. The morning sun filters through the villa's tall windows, illuminating dust motes that float lazily in the golden light. Sabina sits at a polished marble table, a wax tablet before her, her hands restless. The events of the previous night weigh on her, not only in memory but in expectation. Domitia Longina has instructed her to catalogue what she observed, every gesture, every glance, every whisper from the Sub Rosa ritual. This is not mere record-keeping, it is training. In Rome, observation is a weapon, knowledge becomes leverage. Sabina writes carefully, noting alliances, subtle expressions of fear and desire, the hierarchy enforced by masks and ritual. Each detail could prove vital in the days ahead. Even a seemingly insignificant glance could signify loyalty or betrayal. The villa, though quiet, hums with tension, as if the walls themselves are aware that power is never dormant. Varro enters, his steps measured, eyes flicking to Sabina's notes. He carries the weight of survival, but also the urgency of opportunity. "You must understand," he whispers, leaning close, "that what you witnessed is only part of the story. Power in Rome is as much about perception as action. The ritual created bonds, yes, but it also created enemies, and enemies are patient. They wait for missteps." Sabina listens, absorbing every syllable. She understands that she now occupies a dangerous intersection. The knowledge she carries protects her, but it also marks her. The elite of Rome move in shadows, and any misstep, intentional or not, can cascade into scandal, ruin, or death. Her survival will depend on vigilance, cunning, and timing. By midday, subtle movements in the city indicate that the night's secrets have begun to stir. Servants whisper in marketplaces, slaves carry messages cloaked in indirect language, and the murmurs reach the ears of those too proud to appear concerned. Sabina realizes that the villa is both sanctuary and stage. Domitia has allies who can shield her for now, but every day presents new threats. A senator's glance, a matron's smile, a handshake all can conceal lethal intent. Sabina observes how social currency functions. Loyalty can be bought, favors can be traded, and knowledge itself can be weaponized. Even survival demands strategy, as Rome's political landscape is as intricate and dangerous as any ritual chamber. And Sabina's understanding of it must evolve quickly. Domitia summons Sabina to her private quarters as dusk falls. The golden matron's presence is commanding, every movement precise, every word measured. "Tonight, you will observe, not ritual, but consequence," she declares. "The city has heard whispers. Families will maneuver, rivals will act. And you, Sabina, must watch closely. Do not speak. Do not intervene unless instructed. Understand the currents, and you will know how to navigate them." Sabina nods, her pulse quickening. She senses that these lessons are far more dangerous than the rituals themselves. Outside the villa, the machinery of power turns relentlessly. Those unprepared to read it are crushed, and she is determined not to be one of them. The first meeting begins in a shadowed hall, illuminated by oil lamps that flicker against marble floors. Senators and matrons gather under the pretense of casual discussion, but every word carries weight. Sabina positions herself at the periphery, observing. A senator named Gaius Fabius whispers to a matron, his tone measured, eyes darting toward Domitia's allies. A minor scandal is already spreading the rumor that Sabina, the daughter of Marcus Sabinus, participated in the forbidden ritual. Some dismiss it, others see opportunity. The Sub Rosa ceremony, though secret, has left footprints that even the most careful participants cannot erase. Sabina notes the way alliances form and fracture, the subtle exchanges of power that occur without a word of law or decree. The ritual may have ended, but its consequences ripple endlessly. Varro glides through the assembly, charming, persuasive, and calculating. Sabina watches him, realizing that his survival depends as much on perception as on any action. He approaches a pair of influential matrons, leaning close, lowering his voice. A subtle nod here, a careful smile, their signals understood only by the initiated. Sabina begins to understand that mastery of Rome's elite is an art form, reading, anticipating, and influencing without revealing one's hand. Every participant in the ritual is now navigating a broader web. And Sabina, though young and inexperienced, is learning to see the threads connecting power, desire, and survival. By nightfall, Sabina is exhausted yet alert. She retreats to a quiet terrace, where the scent of olive trees mingles with the cooling city air. Domitia joins her, motionless, contemplative. "You see, Sabina," she says softly, "ritual teaches obedience, observation teaches survival, action teaches influence. And influence is the currency of Rome. Never underestimate it, and never assume safety where masks and secrecy abound." Sabina nods, her mind racing. She feels the weight of responsibility settling upon her shoulders. Each lesson from the villa, each whispered secret, each political maneuver is a thread in the fabric of her understanding. She is no longer a passive observer. She is becoming a participant in the dangerous ballet of Rome's elite. As the night deepens, Sabina reflects on what she has learned. The villa, the sub rosa ceremony, the custos varo, domiciage has imparted lessons in survival, manipulation, and power. The city is alive with currents of ambition, desire, and fear. Rome's elite operate on multiple planes simultaneously: ritual, perception, alliance, and deception. Sabina begins to understand that her role is not merely to observe, but to navigate, influence, and, when necessary, protect herself. The lessons of the ritual chamber extend outward into the forums, the streets, and the shadowed halls of power. And she must be ready to act, because in Rome, knowledge without execution is as dangerous as ignorance itself. As she descends the terrace stairs, Sabina senses the city holding its breath. Shadows lengthen, and the flicker of torches hints at movements unseen. She feels the pulse of Rome, a heartbeat of intrigue, danger, and ambition. Tomorrow, alliances will be tested. Friends will become rivals. The consequences of last night's forbidden ritual will continue to unfold, touching every corner of the city, and Sabina will be at the center of its silent currents. She steps into the streets with measured grace, prepared to observe, to learn, and, when the moment demands, to act. Rome never sleeps, and neither can she not if she wishes to survive.